All right. But it is in our library if you'd like to check it out. You can go through that. So. All right. Who is like the wise person? Who is like the wise person? And who knows the interpretation of a matter? Very rhetorical questions, right? Very rhetorical. This is the interpretation of a word, a debar, or a logos. Who knows the interpretation of a matter? A man's wisdom brightens his face, all right? And the sternness of his face is changed. All right? Agree? Disagree? What do you think? Who is like the wise person? Who knows the interpretation of a matter? Okay, so let's do this. If you want a good definition of what does it mean to be wise, keep reading, and it says the one who knows the interpretation of a matter. All right, y'all see that? So wisdom means what? I know how to interpret a matter, a word. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit in the weeds on you real quick. To know how to interpret a matter, all right? This is the Greek word rhema, all right? We have logos, which just means word, okay? But it has a depth of meaning. It can mean the sort of the ultimate reality, okay? Y'all with me? Y'all staying with me? Okay, stay with me here. Okay. In Greek thought, there were 4 elements, right? Can y'all name the 4 elements? Earth, air, fire, water. Good. Earth, air, fire, water. Okay? Everything falls into those categories, right? Okay? And then the 5th, and the Romans in Latin, they would call this the quintessential. All right? There are 4 essential elements, all right, in Greek thinking. Translate that into Latin, the quintessential or the quintessential thing is what? The word, the logos, all right? So the Greeks would have adopted this idea that the logos is the ultimate reasoning of all things. It's the thing that says, oh, when you put water on a fire, it extinguishes it, all right? It's the ultimate understanding. It makes all the elements fit together. So when John writes what in his prologue, in the beginning was the Word, which he is interpreting as who? Jesus. Okay, right? In the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So Jesus is the quintessential thing that makes everything else make sense. Okay? So a lot of people go, well, Jesus is the Word of God. They point to their Bible, and I'm going, no, don't do that. That's not what he's saying. He's saying it's the thing that makes everything make sense. And so Solomon is asking, who's the wise person? You want to know who the wise person is? He's the one who knows the interpretation of the word. The rhema, which is just a fancy way of saying logos, all right? It's a powerful word, is a rhema, all right? It's a debar in Hebrew, okay? So this is the person who's kind of put all this together. When John writes, in the beginning was the Word, we should go, that's a wise person. He's figured out the connection of all these things, okay? So, and a man's wisdom brightens his face, all right? And I love it because he finally left it literal, okay? It does. It means the panim, the prosopon, all right? It brightens his face. Is that true? Wisdom brightens your face. It literally is the word for illuminates your face. And the sternness of his face is changed, or the strength of his face is changed. Have you ever met anybody that just has a powerful presence about them? And I've met a lot of older pastors that are just solid pastors. And there's a strength to their face that just, you almost don't even want to question them because you can see how convinced they are and how strong they are, and they understand what they're saying and they say it strongly, all right? This is kind of this idea. There's a strength in the expression of your face with wisdom, all right? 2, a little practical. Keep the king's commands, or keep his mouth, literally, all right? They didn't go literal on this one. Keep the king's mouth because of your oath made before God, or keep the king's commands because of your oath made before God. What oath did you make? Why keep the king's commands according to an oath? Did you swear allegiance to the king? Hopefully you haven't sworn allegiance to any king, all right? If you ever had to, all right? But he's saying this: you should keep the king's commands because of your oath made before God. Do not be in a hurry. Now, you got to connect these phrases. Do not be in a hurry to leave his presence. You want to linger in the presence of the king. Why? Look at the contrast. And don't persist, can kind of mean linger, in a bad cause. So who do you want to sit with? Do you want to sit with the king in his presence, hearing his words, hearing his commands, learning from him, seeing him? Or do you want to persist, literally to sit in a evil cause or an evil word? All right? Since he will do whatever he wants, whatever pleases him, for the king's word is authoritative. And who can say to him, what are you doing? Now, in what kind of system is this true? Is this true in our system? In our system of government? Who has the ultimate authority? The genius of our system is what? No one has ultimate authority. It's divided, all right? It's balanced perfectly. I am the history nerd. I have actually read the notes that Madison wrote about the development of the Constitution. Isn't that sad? All right? Catherine, you would love it. It's awesome. All right? You need to read the notes, Madison's notes on the debate. All right? I used to give assignments to my 8th graders. All right? And they would have to read through the notes. I gave them 3 days. That's all they had to do. And they're like, oh, this is horrible. I'm like, no, it's awesome. All right? Why? Because you see this balancing act of putting together the Constitution. And, 5 months later, poof, we have what we have today and still have it today because they balanced all this power. But in these days, and really up until, 1700s, what kind of systems of government do we have? It's all monarchy, very heavy top down, okay? And so he's saying you need to be careful. You need to give honor to that king, all right? So who do we give honor to today? How can we translate this into us today? Keep the king's commands because your oath made before God. Do not be in a hurry to leave his presence. Don't persist in a bad cause, since he will do whatever he wants. For the king's word is authoritative, and who can say to him, what are you doing? In our system, who is the he? Obviously, theirs is king. Ours is... I'm talking about, let's just read this and go, whose commands and whose presence and who will do whatever who wants, whose word is authoritative, and who can say to him, what are you doing? Let's don't go on the God thing, because he's not talking about God. He's talking in very practical terms, right? All right. Your boss, okay. President. How much direct influence does the president have over our lives as far as, do I have to follow his command? Okay. Okay, there's your one exception, all right? Obviously, as commander-in-chief, okay? But the rest of us fall under whose authority? And I'm getting so nerdy political on y'all tonight. This is, what? Yeah. We all follow under the authority of the Constitution, okay? I know I'm getting so nerdy on y'all, all right? But the governor passes laws, the legislature passes laws. We submit to those laws, or we pay the penalty for that lack of submission, okay? So for them, it was the king, because the king's command was law, right? Okay? Again, I don't want to get nerdy, but this is what the Bible is saying about our laws and our governance. We need to submit to those, all right? We need to submit to those things, all right? As long as what? I'll put a caveat in there. We need to submit to our governing authorities as long as what? They do not directly contradict, all right, what we're told. in God. All right, and let's move on. 5. All right, because I'll get nerdy on you because I can do that civics thing. All right, the one who keeps a command will not experience anything harmful. All right, and the wise heart knows the right time and procedure. All right, the one who keeps the command will not experience anything harmful. All right, no evil. Is that true? If you keep the command, you follow the command. All right. Yes, is that true? What are you saying? Go ahead. Theoretically, yeah. Yep. That's what he's saying. All right. He's saying follow the rules and you won't have any, no, nothing bad, nothing adverse will happen to you. All right. Pay your taxes. They can hire all the IRS agents you want. You pay your taxes, pay them according to the law. Good luck. Audit me all day long. We're good. Okay. Nothing harmful will come to you. And a wise heart knows the right time and procedure. Season, the right season of doing something and the right judgment. It's the Hebrew word mishpat, the Greek word krino, all right? It's I know when to do something and I know how to do it. I use good judgment in how I do things. How many of your kids just came out of the womb with good judgment? No. You had to go, okay, that was not a good call, okay? That's not the way we're going to do things, okay? Their timing might have been a little off, okay? So you learn these things. So a wise man knows when to do something and how to do something, all right? Why? Because he knows the interpretation of the matter, okay? He's going to repeat this phrase. For every activity, there is a right time and procedure. All right, season and judgment. Now, does that sound familiar? For every activity, there is a right time and procedure. We've heard that before, right? Yeah, chapter 3. Okay, turn. There we go. All right. Even though man's troubles are heavy on him. Man's troubles are heavy on him. It's the Hebrew word rab, R-A-B, which means much or many. All right. And Greek word polis, we get poly out of this, okay? Man's troubles are heavy on him. So every activity has a time and a procedure, even though man's troubles are heavy on him. Do any of you have a lot on your plate right now? That's this phrase. Your plate's getting heavy. You ever said those words? I just got a lot on my plate. I got a lot going on. I got a lot of things going on. Somebody asked me today if I could speak the night all 3 of our kids are coming home for Thanksgiving. And I said, I'm going to have to pass on that one. All right? Actually, it'd kill me if I went and spoke somewhere that night. All right? Because what? I got one coming here, and then I got to drive to Dallas-Fort Worth to pick up the other. That's a lot on my plate. Now, for me to hurry back so I can go speak at Haven Homes that night, not a good call. Okay? Because there is a time and a procedure for everything, even though man's troubles are heavy on him. And Jesus talks about this in Matthew 6, right? Sermon on the Mount. Don't worry about tomorrow. Why? Tomorrow's going to be heavy enough. See that language he's using? Okay? So know the time, know the season, know the procedure or the judgment. All right? 7, yet no one knows what will happen because who can tell him what will happen? Duh. All right? We don't know what's going to happen. No idea. All right? Anybody have anything happen to him this year you thought, never expected that one. Didn't see that one coming. All right? Yeah. It's just life. Okay? And even the king can't do anything about it. 8. No one has authority over the wind to restrain it or to hold it back or to prevent it. And there is no authority over the day of death. All right? No one has authority over the wind. Spirit, it's the same word. It's the word ruach, it's the word pneuma. So the spirit and the wind, it's the same word. Is that okay? Pneuma, anybody ever get fluid on their lungs? We call that pneumonia. Pneumonia. Wind and spirit, same thing. That's why I really love, okay, think with me. Y'all this is over here, squirrel moment for me. What's the first beatitude? Blessed are the poor in ruach, all right? Or pneuma, pour in wind. Why? This is what I love. Ashley's heard me say this before. Where is Jesus when he speaks these words? Sermon on the Mount. He's near Galilee, sitting up on the mountain, overlooking what? The Sea of Galilee. And I'm just wondering if he looks out there and he looks and he sees a boat and they're struggling. Why? Because there is no wind. They're poor in wind. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed is that guy. He's just waiting on his Father to give him wind. All right? Just another thing. When else does Jesus talk about this idea of wind? Well, religious officials. Anybody? Who knows where the wind comes from? You with me? John 3. Nicodemus. Where, do you feel that, Nicodemus? It's the wind. Where's it coming from? Where's it going? I don't know. You're a teacher in Israel and you don't know? You don't know this? How can you know this? So Solomon is writing, and he's making an obvious point. No one has authority over the wind to restrain it, and there is no authority over the day of death. Who's had authority in this chapter? We need to keep the king's authority, but what is the king? What are his abilities? Can he do anything about the wind? Can he do anything about the day of his death or anybody else's? Nope. And there is no furlough in battle. Anybody ever been military? Any of you guys military? Josh, you're sort of military-ish. Can you imagine being in the middle of a battle and going, hey, can I take 2 weeks off, go home, see the wife and kids? I'm a MASH binger. I mean, not like I watch them. I like continually watch them. Eric, you with me? I'm on season 2. Third, fourth round. I just watch them because everything else is garbage on TV. Not like MASH is great, but it's good. But when do any of the characters get to go home for a little bit? No, it's like I've been in Afghanistan for 3 years now. I'm like, because there are no furloughs in battle. You keep going. And it's interesting. This is the word apostle. No one is sent away apostle in the midst of a battle. You stay in the battle, all right? And wickedness will not allow those who practice it to escape. When you're in a battle, you're in a battle. Ain't no walking away. You're going to stay in this battle because everybody needs you, all right? And wickedness, you ain't leaving wickedness either. Wickedness will not allow those who practice it to escape. In the Greek, it is they will not allow them to be saved. So wickedness is its own consequence. Think about this. What does Paul write about sexual sin? Paul writes to the Corinthians and says, look, you need to flee sexual immorality because sexual immorality is a sin against who? Your own body. So he says, look, if you murder someone, you are harming that person. But when you commit sexual immorality, you're literally harming yourself, hurting yourself. All right? And this is what I think this is what Solomon is kind of addressing, that wickedness will not allow those who practice it to escape because it is its own consequence. All right? 9. All this I have seen, applying my mind. Now, this is a phrase we've seen before, is applying my mind. What did I say about the word mind in Ecclesiastes? How should you translate it? You remember? Almost every single time the word mind is used in Ecclesiastes, it's referring to the word heart, okay? And when that applying my mind, it's giving my heart. It's the Hebrew word Nathan, all right? Or anybody know anybody named Nathan? Nathan literally means gift or to give in Hebrew. Very similar to Matthew, all right? Mataniah, all right? Applying my mind. I'm going to give my heart into all these works that is done under where? Under the sun. We see that about 40 times in Ecclesiastes. At a time when one man has authority over another to his harm. All right? So all this I've seen, I'm giving my mind to all this work that's done under the sun at a time when one man has authority over another to his harm. Which his? Whose harm? One who has authority over another. Who's being harmed? The one who has authority is being harmed by the one under him?
Well, I mean, if you want to look at it on the surface, the one that's...
I'll look at it however you want to. How you want to look at it, Jamie?
Well, the one that is ruling over someone and harming them is actually harming himself.
It doesn't say he's harming them. It says the effect is harm, not the action, right? Back up and read it again, because this is a very confusing one. And in the Hebrew, I went to all the commentaries. They're like, oh, that's ambiguous. That's ambiguous. That's ambiguous. I'm like, thanks a lot. Duh. All right. So don't hear me saying there is an answer and Jamie's wrong. All right. Right, Jamie? Okay. All this I've seen, applying my mind, give my heart into the work that is done under the sun. That means just secular world. All right. At a time when one man has authority over another to his harm, his kakos. What you think, Josh?
Okay, this reminds me of when you have, like, in the military, like, if there's a bad leader,
Mm-hmm.
a bad general, or a bad sergeant or something, and you're in the middle of a battle,
Yep.
and the sergeant's not listening to his people on the ground saying, hey, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, but he's so wrapped up in his own authority and in his own hubris that he's like, well, I don't have to listen to you. You're going to do what I say, which ultimately causes him chaos, and he loses the battle, not because of what his soldiers did, but it was because of his poor leadership, because of the fact that he didn't choose.
Okay. So which one's being harmed? The one who has authority or the one who is under the authority?
The one who has authority, because he exercised his authority poorly.
So he's harming himself?
Yes.
Okay.
To make that more direct, Vietnam, all the first lieutenants that got put up, they rushed them through.
Sure.
And they would go out and their men were seasoned and they
Sure.
learned, and they would be forced into a battle, and there was more first lieutenants killed,
Mm-hmm.
shot in the back.
Because of the lack of wisdom, knowledge.
Yeah.
So a leader lacking in wisdom does harm to whom?
Well, they thought they had wisdom. They had all the...
Yeah, but the very idea of you think you have wisdom is the definition of being a fool, right? That's the definition of not understanding or interpreting a matter, all right? So again, anybody want to make the argument that the one in authority is harming or the one being harmed is the one in authority? It can harm everyone. Yeah. I think you can go a lot of different ways with this. But again, come back to the point of this. The one in authority, when he doesn't exercise wise, good authority, harms everyone, right? So be careful taking on the authority. And also, if you're going to take that on the authority, make sure you aren't acting in hubris and all these things. Because if not, you're going to hurt everybody. I always tell people, if I would have had a church in my 20s, can you imagine that, Ash? Can you imagine me running a church in my 20s? I'm bad enough in my 50s, all right? I mean, I didn't plant our church until I was 40 because I would have wrecked a church in my 30s, all right? College ministry I was good with, all right? I could do college stuff. Those are fun, all right? But you have to be careful. You better be ready for it when you take on that authority because you can do harm. 10, in such circumstances, all right, and I'm not sure exactly what he's referring to there, but maybe maybe he's playing off this harm, all right? In such circumstances, I saw the wicked buried, okay? Now, I want to point out a word here. This word wicked. This word wicked is a negative word in the Greek, all right? It's sebomai. Sebomai means to worship God properly, to have an awe and respect, and if I'm sebomai, that means I worship God properly, okay? Asebomai means what? I have no regard for God. I do not worship God properly. I do not have, he's irrelevant to me. I don't have anything to do with him. I laugh at people that do go to church, worship God, whatever you want to say. Everybody got the picture here? So this wicked person, when he drives past our church, he goes, what a bunch of idiots. Why would they even go in the building like that? Has no regard for God, okay? So this is this idea of wicked, all right? I just want you to see that, okay? And I make fun of Rasha because it's literally the Hebrew word Rasha or Rasha, all right? So don't name your kid Rasha, okay? It's Hebrew for wicked, all right? So I saw the wicked buried. What, is that a problem? Should the wicked be buried? Isn't it good to bury people that are wicked? Receiving a burial is a sign of what? Respect, honor. How was Jezebel buried? She wouldn't. When the dog pooped it out, we scooped it up and threw it in a hole. All right? Yeah, that's kind of the difference. Who is it? Not Jezebel's husband. It would have been Jezebel's son-in-law. He was buried to no one's regret. All right? So they basically threw him in a hole and said, fine, do away with him. All right? So he's saying, I've seen this. All right, in such circumstances, I saw the wicked buried. That's a, no, that's not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to be buried. The Valley of Hinnom, all right? The Greek sort of interpretation is Gehenna, okay? The Valley of Hinnom is right outside the city walls of Jerusalem, okay? And it was a pit. It was a trash pit. And they would literally throw the bodies of sort of the homeless and the indigent and the crucifixion victims would be thrown into the pit, the burning trash pit in the Valley of Hinnom, which was known as Gehenna, all right? So this idea of hell is, oh, that's like the burning trash pit in the Valley of Hinnom, okay? And so he's saying that's where the wicked should go, right? But to be buried, well, that's not right. They should not be treated with respect. You see, they came and went from the holy place. What's the holy place? The temple. And how new is the temple? Just think on this one. How new is the temple at this point when this is being written? Brand spanking new. So how much respect does that temple have? How much awe is there to it? Has it been corrupted by the Pharisees and the Sadducees yet? Are they selling stuff in the temple at this point? No. I mean, the dedication has just happened. I mean, we're still first generation. It still had the new temple smell to it. All right? It was good. And they came and went in this holy place. Now, you're not supposed to do that for a couple 100 years, right? But this is just built it, just had it dedicated, just had all this, and they are coming and going from the holy place. And how are they described? Asebomai, all right? Rasha, they are wicked, all right? No respect for God. And they were praised in the city. What city? That was an easy one. Jerusalem, all right? Where they did so. This too is futile. Solomon's watching this going, man, I built that thing. I spoke to God about it. God said, hey, if you pray into this, and now look at them. And they get buried? Explain that to me. Explain that to me, how this is fair, how this is right, how this is good. And who's he yelling at? Yeah, he is. He's going, because this isn't karma. And God's going, I know. Our Bible, our faith is not karma, all right? It's pruning. It's a gardener. Don't ever, ever, ever think things are supposed to be fair or karmatic, all right? Ever. Don't ever, ever go there. Don't ever question the fairness of something, all right? Because that's always the mistake David makes. That's always the mistake Job makes. Everybody makes. We do this, right? God, that's not fair. I've. And God's going, you seem to think that matters. I'm not trying to make a fair world. I'm trying to make you like my son. I'm trying to make you worship. I'm trying to do something in your life that you can't even imagine. All right? Be careful with that. Anytime you go to the karma, stop yourself and go, okay, wait, wrong religion. I don't live in India. Okay? All right? 11, very practical. All right? This will resonate with you. Because the sentence against a criminal act is not carried out quickly, very specific, it's not carried out quickly, the heart of people is filled with the desire to commit crime or to commit evil. That's pretty practical right there, isn't it? Imagine 3,000 years ago, they're having a little trouble with criminals and crime. And what's the problem? Criminals are not being given sentenced and their sentence being carried out in a timely fashion. Man, it's like he wrote this yesterday. I've studied a little bit on the idea of capital punishment and the death penalty. And I always think, if we were a little quicker with that death penalty thing, I think it might actually work. And here's if you ask me, are you in favor of the death penalty right now? I would say, no, I'm not. Because it doesn't work. I mean, when victims' family members are dying off of old age before the person that killed their family member dies after being sentenced to death, that doesn't work. No one's going, oh no, I might get the death penalty and die 20 years later. I'll probably die 20 years later just being on the street. Just let them out. They'll just probably die of natural causes or whatever, right? It doesn't work. Now, you make about a 6-month, all right, you get sentenced to death, we'll clear the dock, you get 6 months of appeals and do whatever you want. We'll exhaust those appeals. 6 months later, we're either going to give you this sentence, carry it out, or we're going to put you life with no parole. There was a chilling quote. They said, every time a person gets sentenced to death, a school is forced to close. Think about that for a second. Think about the logic. Every time a person gets sentenced to death, a school will have to close. You know why? Because that's how much it costs to keep a person on death row until the time they are executed, if they are. All right? It's $90,000 a year more to put someone on death row than it is to put them life without parole. $90,000 a year more. I think one of the states said they were going to save $11 million a year by doing away with the death penalty. Again, I don't want to get into weeds too much on that. I've done this research, and so it's always interesting to me. Because the sentence against criminal act is not carried out quickly, the heart of the people, this is really the effect, the heart of the people is filled with the desire to commit crime. All right? Think about that with your kids. Your kids do something, all right? You just say, you know what? Wait till your father gets home. Anybody get that growing up? Nope. Mama said, I got it. We ain't waiting on nobody. All right? That was swift. All right? Well, you get some kid who's 3, and it's like 5 minutes later is an eternity. They ain't learned nothing. All right? I'll never forget, and I still use this to this day. I was doing a tour. I think I was at Texas Rangers, maybe Atlanta. I worked at both. Gave tours of the ballpark. Fun job. All right, that was my fun job. I got free tickets to games. And I'm sitting there, this one teacher, because I would do school groups. This one teacher comes along, and her kids were not too rowdy. They were okay, but she was a good teacher. She said, you got to the count of now to get over here. And I went, oh, I like that. Because what do other teachers go? Well, I'll give you to the count of 3. And I said, ma'am, I've got to ask you, where did you come up with that? And that's genius. And she just said, I am not giving them 3 seconds to disobey me. I said, can my child be in your class? No, because why? Because when you delay justice, you're denying justice, as the saying would go, right? 3,000 years ago, it's the same thing. You know why? Because human personality is the same. It just is, all right? And the heart of the people, it literally means the heart of the sons of men, which means what? It doesn't just mean this generation. It means the heart of the sons of men. That's a legacy thing, right? When you say the sons of men, that's like, well, my kids and your kids and those kids and those kids and those kids are all going to have this same principle in mind, okay? 12, although a sinner commits crime 100 times and prolongs his life, yet I also know that it will go well with God-fearing people, right? Opposite of asebomai, the opposite of wicked is the one who is God-fearing, all right? So look at the contrast. Although a sinner commits a crime 100 times and prolongs his life, that's going to happen. Yet, on the contrary, I also know that it will go well with God-fearing people, for they are reverent. They fear the face of God. All right? So what's he saying? Is he arguing karma here in 12? No. Because karma would say what? A sinner commits 100 times and he dies early. Well, that doesn't happen. Right? Sometimes they're even buried. Even though they've come and gone in the holy place, the brand new holy place, and they're praised, they still get buried. Yep, it's going to happen. Horrible, evil people are going to live a long time. Yet, so he's making the argument, don't go that route. Don't give up. He says, but know this, it will go well for those who fear God. Now, does that mean you're going to have a long life? Everything's going to work out? Make lots of money? Be wealthy? Healthy, wealthy? Prosperity gospel? Read Acts. That's what I always want to tell prosperity gospel folks. Just read Acts. Read the life of the apostles. Go back and listen to all the legacies and the stories of the life of the apostles. Didn't exactly go well, all right? Didn't exactly go well for all of them, all right? And by that, I mean they didn't have this prosperity. It did go well, all right? 13, however, it will not go well for the wicked, asebomai, and they will not lengthen their days like a shadow, for they are not reverent before God, okay? So he's making this contrast. Now, is that an absolute? Again, we've made the argument. That's not an absolute, all right? Wicked people don't always get what they deserve, all right? Now, he's going to make this argument here. 14, there is a futility, all right? There is something that's futile out there. This is something, in your translation may say vanity. There's something that's empty. This shouldn't happen, all right? That is done on the earth. There are righteous people who get what the actions of the wicked deserve. And there are wicked people who get what the actions of the righteous deserve. And I say, bookend this thing, that is futile. To which God replies with what? You thinking this is karma. This is not karma. Let that go. It is not fair. It is not going to all even out. Sometimes 10-year-old girls get cancer. I had a cousin, 9 years old, got cancer, died at 14. Is that fair? No. That's not the point. The point of this life is not to make sure everything's fair and balanced and all this stuff. It's just not. So let it go, okay? Don't ever go, that's the way it's going to be. That's the way God works. Good things happen to good people. Bad things happen to bad people. I don't know where you're reading that. It's just not the way it goes. God works on a whole different scale, a whole different economy. And again, that word pruning should come up a lot. Because pruning doesn't feel good. The bush that's healthy and growing, and God comes along and prunes it, that bush goes, what? I'm doing well. I'm doing good. Why are you inflicting this harm on me? Because the gardener sees the fuller picture. All right? And trust me, it's not about how long you live on this earth. All right? It's what you do on this earth. All right? 15. So I commended enjoyment. Anybody have a different word there for commended? All right? What does that mean? I commended enjoyment. Put R-E in front of that word. I recommended enjoyment. In other words, hey, this life ain't going to be fair. So you might as well do what? I recommend that you just enjoy it. All right? Is it always perfect all the time? No. But when it is, just enjoy it. All right? I recommend enjoyment, pleasure. This is that word, that pleasure in chapter 2 that he said, I'd search for this pleasure and that pleasure and that. Just when it comes along, just take it. Because there is nothing better, gooder for man under the sun than to eat, drink, and enjoy himself. We've seen that phrase a few times, right? Yeah, he always falls back on this. Why? He's sitting there trying to figure all this, trying to wrap his head around all this, and after a while he just goes, you know what? That guy eating, drinking, and having a good meal with his family, that's as good as it gets. And that's not to say, well, that's as good as it gets. Oh, well. Little Eeyore. No, that's awesome. Enjoy. That's pleasure. Enjoy this. Quit trying to make it all fair and all this. Just when it comes along, just enjoy it. For this will accompany him in his labor, in his strivings, during the days of his life that God gives him under the sun. And that's kind of the conclusion Solomon keeps falling back on, isn't it? I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. I'm trying to give my heart to this. I'm trying to gain all this wisdom. I'm seeing this, and that's not right, and that's not fair, and that's not fair, and wicked are buried, and all this stuff, and the righteous are dying early, the wicked are dying late, and it's, you know what? You just need to just enjoy this life. Just enjoy the life, and you're going to strive, and you're going to have troubles, and you're going to have to just keep enjoying your life, all right? 16. Because when I applied my mind to know wisdom, again, we get that phrase, I gave my heart, all right? I took my heart and I said, look, heart, you go figure this out. When I applied my mind to know wisdom and to observe the activity, the occupation, all right? We can use that as a word for job, but just the occupations that go on, the people's, what are they doing, that is done on the earth, even though one's eyes do not close in sleep day or night. In other words, as bad as it gets. I observe all the work of God and concluded, all right? He's writing his thesis, all right? Writing his final thesis. And concluded that man is unable to discover the work, the doing that is done under the sun. Unable to discover it. Unable to go, I figured it all out. Translation what? You are not going to wrap your mind around this. You are not going to come to the conclusion, I've got it all figured out. Because when you make that statement, what do you think God's going to do to you? Oh, you do. Hey, if you want to see an example of this, just read through Job. All right? Get to the backside. We get this young buck named Elihu who's making a lot of sense. And still God comes along and goes, who is filling my ears with their lack of wisdom? You ain't got this figured out. You are unable. In Isaiah, he writes what? My ways are higher than your ways. And Solomon says, I, being the wisest man in the world has ever known, you know what my wisdom has taught me? I ain't that smart, all right? I can't figure this out. I can't understand this, all right? Even though a man's labors, again, this word is this idea of striving and struggling and 9 to 5 and putting nose to the grindstone, even though a man labors hard to seek it out or explore it or figure it out, he cannot find it. Again, it's repeating it. All right, that's twice he said that, right? Okay. Even if the wise man claims to know it, he is a third time what? Unable to discover it. You are not going to figure out what God is doing, all right? And Solomon is so emphatic about it. He says it how many times? 3 times. Okay? Again, Hebrew, that means the est, all right? You're not going to figure it outest. Okay? Holy, holy, holy. Not going to figure me out, not going to figure me out, not going to figure me out. But what can you know about God? He loves us. He's demonstrated that. He's proven that he is good, and he is working all things out together for our good. Those are the fences that you can keep everything in. Now, what happens inside the fence to bring about that good, to demonstrate that love? It's going to be a mystery. It's just going to be a mystery sometimes. And sometimes God's going to go, here's what I was doing, and you're going to go, oh, now I see it. Now I see what he was doing here, all right? But that's rarely in the pruning moments, all right? That takes time, and that takes what? Wisdom, so that you know the interpretation of the logos, the word, the happenings, the matter, all right? What do you think? Is that all right?
Is my face shining?
I don't know. I know mine is, because this light is on my face like nonstop.
That's where we started with this.
I don't know that you're shinier than when you walked in. You probably, you're glowing, all right? All right, anybody have any thoughts about any of this? A little practical, a little sort of random. Again, we're sort of in the Proverbs stage of Ecclesiastes, and so it's not narrative. It's more bullet points of this and this and this. But again, I just find it fascinating that he says that 3 times. You're not going to discover it, and that's okay. And God's made it that way, all right? Because you can't handle it. I always love when he talks to Job and says, where were you when I did this? Where were you when I did this? As if he had explained it to Job, Job would have gone, oh, so that's why you made the oxygen molecule, or the oxygen atom the way you made it. Yeah, like we would be able, oh, now that you explained it to me, now I got it. Now I got my head around it. No. And it's no different. The physical is no different than the experiential or the psychological, all right? And again, what does he recommend? Find those moments of enjoyment and just eat, drink, and enjoy the life that God has given you, even though it's struggle, and that's part of the enjoyment, okay? But again, maintain those fences, the goodness of God, the love of God, and that he is working out all things together for our good. So, all right, let me pray. Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for this logos that just makes everything make sense. So, Father, I pray that we would accept what we can see, that we can appreciate the wisdom that you do give us along the way. Father, I pray that our minds would be given over so that we can understand, that we would not become arrogant or proud, or that we would ever turn and defy your character and the character that you've clearly demonstrated throughout your scriptures. So, Father, may we accept our lack of ability to discover all these things, and may we simply appreciate the things we can know of you. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen, amen, amen. All right, you have a good night.